A meme page with an insect mascot managed to mutate into a massive political force. They called it the Cockroach Janta party. In a matter of weeks, it racked up 22 million followers on Instagram. Millions of Gen Z users coalesced around a singular, highly energized digital banner. They used that momentum to launch a website, gathering over 600,000 signatures with a highly specific real-world demand: the immediate resignation of Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan over national exam paper leaks. The numbers on screen were backed by physical bodies on the streets. Students clashing with police barricades over the education system proved the digital traction was fueled by a boiling, tangible anger. A joke party had amassed the kind of mandate that traditional politicians spend decades trying to build, and that immediately triggered a coordinated panic from the state. The crackdown started quietly. The movement's primary Twitter account was suddenly withheld, cutting off their main public broadcasting channel. Then, the founders found themselves locked out of their Instagram account. Their 22 million-strong direct line to the youth was severed entirely. The final blow came when the government completely terminated the official Cockroach Janta party website, wiping out the 600,000 recorded petitions in an instant. To justify the erasure, officials like Rajiv Chandrasekhar claimed the movement was an artificial, AI-driven influence operation designed to destabilize the country with fake narratives. The rhetoric quickly escalated. Politicians like Sukanta Majumdar pushed the claim that 49% of the movement's followers were actually from Pakistan, framing the meme page as a massive, foreign-funded intelligence operation. By resorting to accusations of international espionage and AI bot armies to explain away an insect-themed youth page, the establishment showed its hand. They were completely unequipped to process genuine, organic Gen Z frustration. The ruling party isn't digitally illiterate. A decade ago, Narendra Modi's campaign pioneered the exact strategy of using digital media to bypass traditional, hostile gatekeepers to reach young voters. Because they used those precise tools to capture a previous generation's loyalty, they are hyper-aware of the threat a new digital insurgency poses today. They also know the underlying math of social media. You can buy a few thousand bots, but generating 20 million organic followers is nearly impossible to fake. That level of traction is a direct threat to a carefully managed political image. The ultimate nightmare for the establishment is what happens when that digital traction breaches containment. They've seen recent regional protests, like those in Nepal, where online momentum suddenly exploded into uncontrollable, violent clashes on the physical streets. The sweeping digital crackdown was a highly calculated preemptive strike. The state was executing its own historical playbook to snuff out a digital spark before it could ignite a physical fire. But the Cockroach Janta party made it easy for the government. They tried to run a massive, unconventional rebellion while adhering to the outdated, centralized rules of a traditional political party. By relying on a single, visible leadership structure and one primary digital hub, they gave the state an incredibly obvious target. Once the main node was severed, the entire network went dark. The leadership then compounded the error by publicly complaining about receiving online death threats, expecting sympathy in an inherently hostile environment. In a landscape where working journalists and street-level activists regularly face severe physical retaliation and imprisonment, crying foul over an unfair playing field exposed a fatal naivety. They also overplayed their hand. Their opening demand was the resignation of a high-ranking union minister, a concession the current establishment hasn't granted under pressure in over a decade. The movement was dismantled swiftly. Their underlying anger was entirely justified, but they built a fragile, highly visible glass headquarters right in the middle of a political war zone. To survive a digital crackdown, a modern movement must become radically decentralized. By splintering into thousands of local chapters with no central command, it transforms into a hydra. It becomes impossible for censors to delete every node. And instead of issuing impossible national ultimatums, these hyper-local chapters can redirect their energy toward highlighting undeniable, everyday civic failures. It looks like absurd street theater, activists dressing up in grungy insect costumes and standing in front of heavily polluted, toxic rivers to force public attention onto the decay in their own backyards. Or it looks like ordinary citizens simply pulling out their phones to interrogate systemic hypocrisy, asking the authorities on camera why their road is lined with high-tech speed cameras to collect fines, but has zero ambulances to save lives. The state proved it can terminate a centralized 22 million follower account in a single afternoon. But no algorithm and no government mandate can silence an entire decentralized generation that has finally learned how to weaponize the right questions.